When it comes to working with control surfaces in Logic, there are no shortage of options. Depending on how you want to have controls, whether that's via faders, rotaries, switches, pads, there is an enormous number of sort of third-party control surfaces out there ready to work with Logic. And all of them have a slightly different way of being installed. And the great thing about that is that obviously the instructions for how all of those will work will come with the choice that you make. Some work remotely, some will work via USB, others via different types of connector. So just be really careful that when you install, you follow the guidelines in order to make sure that everything synchronizes with Logic directly. We could literally spend hours setting up 15 different control surfaces and demonstrating how they might work, but you can follow through those instructions and you'll get your control surface up and running in no time. Perhaps the better control surface to shine a light on is Logic's own remote control, which runs on both iPad and on the iPhone, albeit with a much limited control set on the iPhone. But what it's designed to do is to literally let you have a remote controller for a number of different functions within Logic. Now, it will allow you to run the step sequencer or manipulate smart controls if you want to change parameters on the fly for individual instruments, or as we'll see here, it will let you control some key sort of mixer controls as well. So effectively what I've got is a virtual version of my mix in front of me here on the iPad, which is going to let me do some of the things I would normally do with my mouse and clicking on individual faders. So if I wanted to manipulate the bass volume, for instance, I can simply just pick up that parameter here and I can see that the remote control for that is working. I can also solo that channel if I want to, muting the others, and again I'll see any movements I make here replicated within Logic's main mixer. And of course this becomes quite intuitive in terms of me being able to just use a remote to sort of configure my mix, sort of sit back in my chair and relax and actually sort of think about how I might want to do that in a slightly more tactile way than just simply using my mouse all of the time. But I've also got transport controls here as well, which means that obviously I can just start and stop my mix and actually configure mix settings on the fly. Okay, a couple of subtle changes. I've panned the shaker, turned it up a little bit, and again, I've pulled down the volume of the Rhodes. One of the things that I can do when I'm working with Logic Remote on the iPad is that I can actually open, close, and manipulate Logic's own plugins. I've added a tape delay to the Rhodes piano within this mix, and if I click on the plugin here, I have an opportunity to open its plugin, which is going to provide me with the settings available for me to manipulate. And if I open the plugin here on the screen as well, I'm going to begin to see some of the changes that I can make. So for instance, I could choose a different note division for the delay. At the moment, I'm using a quarter note, and if I decided I wanted to use a dotted eighth note instead, I'll see that the display will update. Similarly, I might decide that what I want to do is to manipulate the feedback amount, and again, you'll see the dial changing in order to introduce the feedback amount that I want. And of course, the whole time I can be doing this in real time, manipulating and changing a plugin as I listen back. And that's a really nice way of sort of interacting with a plugin in a different way via a different interface. So Logic Remote will allow me to configure a whole bunch of settings, whether it's mixer, channel strip options, and whether it's manipulating individual plugin parameters. It's a way of just being able to get away from the mouse and think about manipulating sounds in a slightly more tactile way.